Oh, I feel for my brother. Feel for my brother. The street life used to be on. Straight up hustling till the break of dawn. Taught me how to do wrong right. Everything inside. But somehow things started to change.
What's going on? Teebs here. Teebs and KidPhoenix podcast.
You're back in the building. We're back in the studio.
The other day, I was with some friends, and as one tends to do when one is with friends, I was imbibing. Well, they were friends. I was imbibing some alcoholic beverages, and
I would just like to point out this is how most of our podcast topics happen. One or both of us are inebriated in some way, shape, or form.
Well, I started off the night drinking red wine. But then, as the night progressed, someone passed around this, whatever malted, super sweet. I'm not even sure what the du jour version of this drink is.
Listen, if you were drinking a Bartles and James, it's fine. We've all done it.
No, that would have been a wine cooler. That would have been fine. This was like Mad Dog, but classier.
Jesus.
It was like a classier version of Mad Dog. And I wish that they had told me that.
Which is an oxymoron in every sense of the fucking term.
And I wish they told me that that's what was happening because, as you can imagine, I had violent stomach issues.
Okay,
that night.
This is how we're starting off the podcast.
Just raging, enormous headache. And one of the things that went through my mind was, what if I hadn't drank all that? So that line of thinking set me down this road of what we're going to be talking about on the podcast today, which is some pop culture what ifs, some maybe casting choices that if they went a different way, what would have happened, and just a little speculation on our part. Just maybe if things happened in a parallel universe, maybe this is what's happening over there. That's the general idea here. KidPhoenix, thoughts?
I feel like this is becoming like a seasonal tradition now. I feel like this is our volume 2. I think we've definitely done a what if before. And I'm all about it. I'm here for it. Especially given the alcohol-fueled creativity, so to speak.
I'm glad you appreciate it.
Of course I appreciate it. Any funny story that involves you being in pain in some way, it just makes me happy.
Wow.
I'm just saying, man. You would say the same about me if I... Listen, there were times where I have been at your house and very, very hungover the next day after, con or whatever. And you've made fun of me in jest, and that's fine. That's fair.
Privately, not on the podcast in front of our dozens and dozens of fans.
Yeah, okay, all right. It's more than dozens at this point. We're over 100 followers on Facebook and Instagram.
Holy crap!
Just relax.
Listen, thanks you guys. I had no idea.
We cracked the century mark.
We love all of our listeners, and we appreciate you very much.
So how are we going to kick this off? I think each of us have 2 what ifs. Plus, I have a special one for you, and then I have one that is just like for me personally, and you're probably gonna hate it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So I'll just preface that last one like that. Let's just dive right in. Teebs loves to give homework, and I love when he gives homework because it means that I have to prepare, which is nice. I can keep this train on the track, so to speak, and I peruse like a bunch of different websites, BuzzFeed, IMDb, other secret sites that I care not to get into at this point for fear of NSA backlash. One of the first ones that I came across, and it got me really thinking, are you familiar with the work of one Darren Aronofsky?
Yes, I'm familiar with the work of Darren Aronofsky. Pie, Requiem for a Dream,
Right. The Whale,
Black Swan.
Black Swan is his. Apparently, back in around 2000, Darren Aronofsky was pitched to write and direct a Batman Year One movie. And I had no idea this was a thing until doing some homework and doing some research. And with the Penguin and Colin Farrell taking home Golden Globes, I thought this was a fun little wrinkle that we could discuss a little bit, just because you look at Darren Aronofsky's work between Pi, Requiem for a Dream, The Whale, Black Swan, stuff like that. That is an interesting way to do a Batman story. Very dark, very like in the Aronofsky style of just like fucking weird and just complex and all kinds of crazy shit. And it would have certainly had to have been R-rated, right?
Possibly. But maybe not, because I feel like he has a movie that's not super dark. I mean, most of his movies are like dark, but I feel like he has one or two that go the other way, so not necessarily an R rating.
That's not.
But I think the concept of this Batman Year One might have become Batman Begins.
So you're saying if Aronofsky does his conception of Batman Year One in his style, in the R-rated style, is it better, or is it before people are ready for that kind of Nolan-style Batman movie, which is essentially what an Aronofsky Batman movie would be, right?
So this would have been 2001. Yeah, I think this would probably have been a more a darker take. Definitely, probably a more violent and visceral take. I don't know if people were necessarily ready for that from their superheroes in the early 2000s.
It's also a jarring move to go from the campy style of Joel Schumacher Batman, which we talked about before, which I do agree with. You have to watch Batman and Robin and Batman Forever from the sense that Schumacher was trying to recreate a production of the 1960s Batman, with how it was filmed, the style of it, the intentional comedy of both movies. That is a wild swing to go from that to a Darren Aronofsky Batman Year One, where he's fighting the Falcone family, and your Batman is Joaquin Phoenix in 2000.
Yeah,
that's a tough stretch. And
tough.
let's say Aronofsky does this version of Batman. Do we get R-rated superhero movies? If it's successful, do we get R-rated superhero movies earlier than we do? Like, I get it. We already had Blade, and that definitely worked. Batman is definitely a superhero that lends to possibility of more of a R-rated style, especially if you're drawing from like Frank Miller's Batman.
But the problem is all the other stuff's happening too. So you still have Raimi Spider-Man, Bryan Singer X-Men, and you still have all this other stuff. So I don't know that it ushers in this new wave of R-rated. I just think it would have been really weird.
I do see your point. To counterpoint that, you have Raimi Superman, Spider-Man, you have Bryan Singer's X-Men, and you would have Aronofsky's Batman. So there would be a little bit of something for everybody, so to speak. Like you got something for the bad heads, you got something for somebody that wants a little bit something more mature. Then you also have the just like fan servicey X-Men movies, and then you just have the weird ass fucking Spider-Man movies, which were fantastic in its weirdness thanks to Sam Raimi.
Right. I mean, could that Batman movie slide in here? Yeah, maybe. But then here's the question: what happens with
That is the biggest what if, I think, here. If Aronofsky's Batman fails, I don't think Warner green lights the Nolan Batmans, because they would just come back to him and say, listen, we tried this like more mature, even more dark Batman thing. It didn't work. Sorry, just go off and do like Inception and Tenet and whatever else you're going to do.
Right, and if they're successful, then yeah, maybe Christopher Nolan becomes the indie weirdo that Aronofsky has kind of turned into.
And then let's say that movie is successful. Like, because if it's successful, there's going to be more movies, there's going to be more sequels. So what does a Darren Aronofsky Batverse look like to you?
It's I can't really think about it.
Because
Like
I
it's
feel
it's
like
very hard to imagine, and like just thinking about Black Swan and what happened there, and like
it would almost feel like Joker-esque to me, almost, when I think about it, when I see how Joker came out. Like, that's kind of the universe that I feel like Aronofsky would try to paint. Like, it wouldn't be 100% Nolan, and it wouldn't be like James Gunn's Suicide Squad or anything like that, but
yeah,
it certainly would be better than Snyder, that's for sure.
yeah. Well,
Are you saying that the Snyderverse wouldn't be better than the Aronofsky verse?
what I'm saying is Snyder's Batman is probably a lot like what Aronofsky's Batman would be like.
Interesting. I would not have thought that. I didn't think that
He'd
Aronofsky and
probably be a lot
Snyder.
skinnier. Probably a lot skinnier, but that level of like physicality, I think.
I would agree with that. Like, I feel like the Snyderverse action scenes with Batman, him being a little bit more visceral and willing to kill, so to speak, I think that's 1,000% what Aronofsky would try to do. But I gotta say, it worked out for everybody. Aronofsky was still out there making films. Requiem for a Dream did awesome. Joaquin Phoenix did Gladiator. Like, everybody worked out in the end. It's fine.
Yeah.
And we still got the Snyderverse, and we got the Nolanverse, and now we're gonna get whatever the hell James Gunn is doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, what do you got? What do you got? Number one, let's have it.
All right. So
what's your first one?
My first one is, these were not Tarantino's choices, but the studio choices for the casting of Pulp Fiction. Vincent Vega would have been played. Well, Jules would have been played by Lawrence Fishburne. And Vincent would have been played by Daniel Day-Lewis.
Right. That's such an intriguing tandem. Like, I gotta say,
It's very okay. I don't know if this works because
really,
I think the problem with Daniel Day-Lewis and Lawrence Fishburne is that they have too much. What am I trying to say here? They have too much classical training, and that movie wasn't specifically about acting technique. It was more about style and people being able to deliver lines in a cool way. I don't know if they would have got there. If they did manage to do it, though, somehow, it probably would have looked a lot different. And I think it probably would have been more in Oscar contention than it was.
right?
So the question is, does this put Tarantino onto the track of a critical darling like a Wes Anderson or a Paul Thomas Anderson or something like that, rather than kind of a pop culturist and
Like this indie kid.
right. I mean, he's an indie kid, but like he's not on the critically well, that's hard to say. It's just he's not on the capital A artist side. And I think if that had happened, he would have been
Can I
more
ask
to the capital A artist side.
a question?
Yeah.
Let's say we get this Daniel Day-Lewis, Lawrence Fishburne Pulp Fiction movie. Even if it doesn't win Tarantino an Oscar for that movie, do you think, like, what if, like, that's what we got? Does Tarantino get an Oscar sooner?
Well, he hasn't gotten one.
Well, does he get one, period, for, like, either...
He might, if it works, and He might.
But then the flip side is, if he does that Daniel Day-Lewis, Lawrence Fishburne Pulp Fiction, does he even do Jackie Brown or any of those other, like, classically weird Tarantino
I
films?
don't know if he does Jackie Brown. He might go straight to Inglourious Bastards, but it's going to be called something else.
Right. And then there's also, and I'm probably like jumping the gun on this, but Lawrence Fishburne famously, he turned down Pulp Fiction. Is that how it was, or was just like Tarantino? Like Tarantino wanted Fishburne.
I think Tarantino wanted Fishburne. Fishburne turned it down because he only wanted to take leading roles, and it felt like a supporting role to him.
So he went on to do a supporting role in The Matrix?
It was a different point in his career. It was early in his career, right off of Deep Cover and other stuff like that. He's trying to measure himself up against like a Denzel Washington type.
Right.
And I think that's where he was looking to be. And oddly enough, he doesn't get there, but Samuel L. Jackson does because he does Pulp Fiction. So,
And that's the thing that we have to think about with that time period anyway, just because there were, and we've talked about this on the podcast too, there were so few black actors getting work in the 90s. It was Denzel and Wesley Snipes, and that's basically it.
and Denzel, Wesley Snipes, Larry Fishburne off and on. Giancarlo Esposito still putting in work.
And Sam didn't really come on until like the late 90s, and that was after he did Pulp Fiction. And he's been putting in work ever since. He's still cranking out like 6 movies every 6 months, which is amazing. There's an Area 50. There's that one movie he did where he's like this drug dealer with like the dreadlocks, not the dreadlocks, the cornrows. I always forget what that movie is, but it's fucking hilarious to see him in that picture.
Yeah. I forget myself.
So what if Fishburne does Pulp Fiction? Does that mean we get Sam Jackson in The Matrix?
Maybe it means we get Sam Jackson in The Matrix, although I have this interesting idea. If Fishburne is unavailable for The Matrix because he's too big a name now, maybe that means we get Wesley Snipes as Morpheus, which I'm into.
I'm not against that.
That could be very interesting. Also, does that mean Lawrence Fishburne is Mace Windu? Is that how that works?
I don't. So that's the kicker. I don't think Fishburne does Star Wars. I think Lucas. I still think Lucas gives that to Sam Jackson.
And it just feels like,
because if Sam Jackson is in The Matrix and he does well, Lucas is still giving him the phone call.
It just feels like Samuel L. Jackson is a guy that enjoys being in flicks. You know what I mean? Like, do we understand the difference between a flick and a movie and a piece of cinema? The difference between a flick and a movie and a film.
Yeah.
Do we understand this difference? It's crucial that we understand this.
Break it down Webster's dictionary style for the people.
Okay, a flick is just like a fun movie, a movie that's like cool, that's like done not to win any awards and not to like. It's not done to make awards, but it's not specifically done for awards. It's done because somebody thinks this is a cool idea and they want to do it.
Deep Blue Sea, if we're talking Samuel L. Jackson.
Again, Pulp Fiction feels like a flick.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
The thing about Pulp Fiction is it's a flick that like dabbles in the film area.
That's what I'm saying, because like Pulp Fiction, like I don't know if it was specifically made for awards, but like in the back of Tarantino's mind, like he had to have been thinking, "Oh, I can win an Oscar for this."
Reservoir Dogs.
Halfway through filming, he probably had that thought.
Reservoir Dogs is 1,000% a flick.
Yeah.
That's going to bring us to a movie. A movie might have some like themes behind it, might be trying to push some kind of deeper message, something, but not necessarily. Like, I think Terminator 2 is a movie. Like, it's fun, but like it's also got some kind of messages about about
choosing
child
one's future.
rearing and the future and things like that. A film is just about people and feelings and serious stuff.
So, Gladiator.
No. Gladiator's a movie.
Kidding. That was a
Gladiator
joke.
is a motion picture. Schindler's List is a film. Okay?
Wow. The Teebs and KidPhoenix podcast appreciates the filmmaking prowess that was Schindler's List.
That's great. Actually, Spielberg's the best answer because he's done all of them, okay? Raiders of the Lost Ark is a flick.
That's a flick. E.T.
E.T. is a movie.
E.T. is a movie.
And Schindler's List is a film. Jurassic Park is a movie.
So could movie and, like, for example, the term summer blockbuster, could they be kind of synonymous?
No, they're not synonymous necessarily because Oppenheimer is a film, but it's also technically a summer blockbuster.
Yeah. Since we brought up Spielberg, I have a what if. I have a Spielberg what if for you.
Let's hear it. I can't wait.
You're a big fan of the Bond films.
Wow, I have no idea where this is going.
A connoisseur of Bond films.
No idea where this is going.
You're also an appreciator of Steven Spielberg and his work, apparently.
Yes.
What if, and this is true, and I did the research, I did my homework. What if Steven Spielberg did his Bond movie?
So Steven Spielberg wanted to do a Bond movie?
Apparently, and again, doing the research, Steven Spielberg really wanted to direct a Bond film in 1977 called The Spy Who Loved Me. That apparently was the one Spielberg wanted to do.
77? He wanted to do The Spy Who Loved Me?
Yes.
Okay, well, let me tell you something. In my own personal Bond rankings, The Spy Who Loved Me is like in the top 3.
Yeah.
And would it be this if it's the same script? Here's the big question though. Is it Roger Moore or does he bring in his own guy?
It's Connery.
He wanted to do this movie with Connery in 1977?
He wanted to do this movie with Connery in 77.
Then no, I don't love that idea.
Or maybe I'm sorry, I'm getting this wrong. He fell in love with the Connery Bond, but that's the one he really wanted to do. So yes, I believe Roger Moore would have still been in that.
Roger Moore would have been Bond. There's some great scenes in that, although I don't know. That's very interesting because I don't know if what Spielberg does would translate that well to the Bond franchise. Don't get me wrong. I know the man can direct a good action scene.
Yeah.
But I feel like what's happening in Bond films is like circus level stuff. And I don't know.
This is the ultimate what if for this particular scenario. If Spielberg does this Bond film and it does well, what happens to Raiders?
I think he still makes Raiders. He has time. The question is, does he make Close Encounters? Probably not.
Does he make Close Encounters? Does he make Jaws, which is also
Jaws
75?
Jaws is the reason he gets offered, or he's even in the mix for this.
Right.
But I don't think. See, it was different then, and like taking that job, taking on some kind of big studio picture,
allows you to do.
No, sorry. Especially the filmmakers of that generation would have been seen as selling out, and I don't think he would have necessarily wanted to do that. Yeah.
So you don't think that Spielberg would have taken the high-profile James Bond movie because, like, he'd be viewed as a sellout? That's interesting.
Well, not necessarily a sellout, but that generation was kind of responding to a lot of the problems that they saw in the film industry. And if he goes and does Bond, then he's a member of that industry that he was working against.
He becomes what he hates, basically.
Right.
Interesting. I don't know. I honestly
At least
don't...
initially. I mean, it's funny to be talking about this in regards to Steven Spielberg, but at the time, and when the way he came up with Coppola and Scorsese and all those guys, all those USC guys, and George Lucas even, they have that independent spirit. They just were super successful. So, I mean, but still, it's not like he's out here doing a Marvel movie. He's just out here doing movies that he wants to do.
And it also speaks to that time where we've talked about, up until the 70s, it was just mostly Westerns, if not all Westerns, and Hollywood was out here just all right, we're tired of fucking Westerns. We need other shit. Let's go. That you get Chinatown, you get Jaws.
It was all right. Okay, so it's very clear that at some point in this season, Teebs is going to have to school you on film history. That's going to have to happen. What the
hell? All right, fine. What did I do to deserve? Okay, fine. Whatever, it's fine.
It wasn't just Westerns in and of themselves were not the problem. The problem was Hollywood was only producing movies of 1 or 2 or 3 different genres because they needed bankable, money-making stuff to fight and make sure that they could keep making money because of television. So they would only make. So they were only making movies they were only making 4 or 5 different types of movies. Does any of this sound familiar?
God, we've circled around. We've circled around, folks. Jesus.
A generation of filmmakers came along and said, these kind of movies that they're making, this is Hollywood BS. We want to make movies that are more real, about real people and real situations, and that's the 70s.
And it's also what we hope the 2030s will be, I guess.
We'll see. No, hopefully sooner than that.
What's your next what if? What do you got? What do you got for me?
This is a dual phase what if.
All right. So let me just click my seatbelt in. I feel like I need to strap myself in for this one.
So do you know that there was a plan to do a Spider-Man movie in 96 before the Sam Raimi Spider-Man?
So
do you know about this?
No, and I'm trying to. So basically, around the same time frame as Wesley's Blade, because Wesley's Blade is 97. Wesley's Blade is
1990.
way earlier.
Maybe.
Way earlier. Okay. This is even before the Spider-Man Fox Kids cartoon. That's a ballsy move by Hollywood right there. That was something they were experimenting on.
This version of Spider-Man was supposed to be directed by one James Cameron.
No, get the hell out of here. So James Cameron doing a Spider-Man movie, which is basically the equivalent of James Cameron doing Aquaman and Entourage.
Right.
20 years later. Jesus Christ. Who did Jimmy want to play fucking Peter Parker? Fucking Michael Biehn? What?
Okay, let's think about actors that were hot around the middle 90s that would eventually go on to work for Jim Cameron. Let's give this some thought.
Leo's too young, right?
Leo, Nardo, DiCaprio.
Get the hell out of here.
Yes.
How was this? Would have been before Basketball Diaries? After Basketball Diaries?
After Basketball Diaries, after Gilbert Grape.
So Leo's 19, 20?
The thing is, if he makes this Spider-Man, if James Cameron makes this Spider-Man, Titanic either gets pushed into the thousands or it doesn't get made at all.
What year is Terminator 2?
92, 91.
So, if we get James Cameron's Spider-Man, does that also mean that Terminator 2 gets pushed? Actually, wait. Better question. Better question.
No, that means you don't. That means you get no true romance and possibly no Titanic.
Better question. If Hollywood wants to do a Terminator 2 and James Cameron is unavailable because he's doing Spider-Man, who directs Terminator 2?
Terminator 2 would have been made. He would have made that.
Really?
I said 90, but they just signed the rights. The film wouldn't have gotten made until the middle 90s.
Okay.
They wrestled. They bought the rights in 90. Carolco did, but they wouldn't have been ready to make the film, and Cameron was already in production on Terminator 2. So
okay. So
Terminator 2 definitely happens. If Spider-Man is his next movie after that, and I'm telling you, this Spider-Man would have been freaking wild.
So Leo is Peter Parker. Was there like a story? Is there like a plot? Additional cast members?
Okay, so reading from Collider magazine.
Shout out Collider. Can't wait to work with you guys. Can't wait to see you guys at Con this summer.
Cameron's vision for the project was laid out in a 50-page script mint he had handed into Carolco, and it was not quite the toy-friendly PG-rated Spider-Man we're familiar with.
Yes!
Peter would have been bitten by a radioactive spider as per canon, but instead of mechanical web shooters, Cameron opted for organic web shooters, which would be carried on to raid Spider-Man.
Yes.
Cameron's Peter would have made fake mechanical shooters, however, to hide that fact. Peter would wake up having sprayed his organic webs everywhere, further locking in that Spider-Man being a metaphor for puberty. In addition to spider powers, Peter would also gain the predatory bloodthirst of spiders as well.
Hold on a second. What? That's man spider territory.
With Electro telling him during their battle atop the World Trade Center, spiders are predators. They kill to live. They are not hampered by humanitarian ideals or impeded in their lethal efficiency by delusions of morality.
James,
hold on.
The script is already too thick. It's already too thick, James. You lost me.
Frequent profanity and a graphic sex scene on the Brooklyn Bridge, coupled with a lengthy discussion of spider mating rituals between Peter and MJ, would have guaranteed an R rating. So look, it's very clear that this would have been a departure. But pretty much the first half of this movie is in Raimi's Spider-Man.
So the organic web shooters,
yeah,
the upside down kiss is probably substituted for the Brooklyn Bridge. Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin definitely shows here from what you're telling me. Wow, Raimi took a lot of cues from that.
Okay. It's another
one of those movies where it's just like people aren't ready for something like that in a superhero movie.
If this movie was unsuccessful, does it make if James Cameron can't make Spider-Man work, does that make every superhero concept radioactive for the next 10 years? So no Blade, no X-Men, no Raimi Spider-Man, no Batman Begins, nothing until maybe Iron Man, or
Can I be honest with you?
Mm-hmm.
I think Blade still gets done for one reason and one reason only.
Why?
New Line Cinema. Needed after Friday and after Nightmare on Elm Street, like they wanted something. So I feel like New Line would still take a chance with a Blade movie. But outside of that, I agree. You probably don't get Batman Begins, but if Blade 97 is successful, then I still think that Hollywood still is like, okay, we can maybe give the right things a try. I don't think you get Raimi Spider-Man, period. I think that's the one thing that gets left out. Does Fox do X-Men? Maybe. Because X-Men is such a big brand name that, like, everybody
But
will
see,
flock
here's the
to it.
thing. Here's the thing. Blade is the movie that shows Hollywood, hey, superheroes are viable. Then on the strength of that, they go make X-Men. Hey, these are making money. Then on the strength of that, they go make Spider-Man. Hey, these are making a lot of money. And then on the strength of that, hey, nerds make us money. Let's go do Lord of the Rings. I don't think, maybe if there's no Blade, there's no Lord of the Rings because New Line then doesn't take a chance on nerd properties.
I think that's the big what if. Like, what happens to New Line Cinema if Cameron's Spider-Man doesn't work? I still think they do Blade. I don't know if they do as many sequels. They definitely don't do Lord of the Rings. That's for damn sure. I don't think so.
If this movie is successful, what do comic book movies look like going forward from this?
I think you get Tom Cruise as Iron Man. I think you get Nick Cage as Superman. I think those things actually get greenlit.
That's true. You might get Nick Cage as Superman.
Are there any other, like, ancillary characters that they would take a chance on? Because, like, I don't want to say Spider-Man's an ancillary character, but he's not like a Captain America. He's not like a Thor. He's not like, one of the OG Avengers or anything like that.
I don't know. I think Blade was the perfect low risk, high reward character.
An interesting question, because James Cameron is kind of a film head. Do you get Ang Lee's Hulk?
I think Ang Lee's Hulk is the movie that kind of broke that whole mini MCU situation.
Yeah. Like, let's not even talk about the Hulk, because then that'll just get me on the whole, like, Ed Norton thing, and I've litigated that to death, and I do not want to hear arguments.
I like Ang Lee's Hulk. Ang Lee's Hulk is good.
Ang Lee's Hulk is good. Ed Norton's Hulk is good. Like, I don't understand why. Alright. This is all I'm going to say.
Don't.
Okay. Alright. Ed Norton's Hulk is good. I'm just going to leave it at that. Here's the one that I know you're going to hate, because I've litigated this with you over the phone, and you hate it when I do it all the time. But I have to do it because this show is turning 15 years old this year. The show debuted in 2010. What if one of the better comic book adaptations, The Walking Dead, just ends after season 7?
So I'm not sure what happens in season 7.
At the end of season 7, spoiler alert, it's the big war battle between Rick Grimes and Negan. Negan loses, and then they do that jump to the future. I think if The Walking Dead ends right there at season 7, I think it is way, way less maligned than it has been. Because the further seasons 8 through 10 are absolute trash. Absolute garbage. There's nothing redeeming about those seasons at all, period. The spin-off machine of Fear the Walking Dead, Dead City, Daryl Dixon, the ones that we don't get any of that, and that is absolutely fine. Maybe we get a Walking Dead movie maybe a year or two after season 7 ends, and then that's it. But after season 7 of The Walking Dead, they should have ended it right there. It was the perfect way to end that show. Rick wins, Negan is captured, don't need to do anything else until you get a Walking Dead movie and finish off the series. I'm fine with that. Breaking Bad ended perfectly. Better Call Saul ended perfectly. I think AMC, they got a hold of something that they really wanted to keep going with, because Breaking Bad was ending. They were just like, well, we need something to fucking make money for the studio. Let's just milk The Walking Dead for all it's worth. And it tarnished the legacy of this show.
I can't speak to it too much because I think even season 7 might be too late.
But, like, if So if The Walking Dead ends at season 7, I think that two things. One, we don't get the Deadiverse, which I actually think is a pro now that I think about it, because there are shows and does anybody really give a shit about Rick and Michonne's show anymore? Like, that was straight up 6 seasons. Nobody talked about it.
That show was 6 seasons?
6 episodes, I'm sorry.
Whoa.
That show was 6 episodes. Nobody talked about it. Daryl Dixon has 2 seasons. No one talks about it. I just think that ending The Walking Dead at season 7 would have been perfect. And I know that you are not the biggest fan of The Walking Dead because seasons 1 through 5, they kind of do the same thing. Oh, there's zombies. Oh, we got split up. Oh, we got to find each other. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Hot take incoming. Season 7 is probably one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen.
Well, I'm going to have to really take your word for that, because I do think the first season of Walking Dead is phenomenal. Second season, not so much. Third season's okay. Fourth season's good. Fifth season and every subsequent season I watched was just okay.
I guess the
ultimate problem with The Walking Dead, and I know that this is a feature of the comic, but the ultimate problem is there's no goal. There seems to be no goal, and everything is just aimless, and that's the problem. Like, I understand that is the purpose, but, like, that doesn't work for TV, especially when you're trying to engage people on a week in, week out basis, season in, season out. Like, I need to be excited for something. I need to know that these characters are moving towards something. You mentioned, sorry. You mentioned Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Those shows were moving towards something, especially Better Call Saul. You knew where you had to get to, and seeing where you started, it was very interesting watching that development. And in Breaking Bad, you're just watching the slow decline happen. So there's a goal. Walking Dead, like, what's the goal? They escape zombies, they go from one community that gets raided and destroyed to another community, to another, to this guy that's an ass, to this guy that's an ass, to this guy that's an ass. Like, what's the goal?
A lot of assholes in the dystopian zombie future.
Like, if they were trying to get somewhere, like if they were like, oh, we heard there are no zombies in, like, the West Coast, let's try to get there. Like, something like that.
So, like season 1, where the goal was basically get to Atlanta.
Get to Atlanta. That's why it's the best season. They had a goal. They were trying to do something. And the way that season ends is great, because it is ultimately saying, oh, this is all pointless and this world is terrible and trash, and you guys need to just, yeah.
Which is why I love season 7 so much, specifically because of what you're saying. Because, like, I agree with you, like, the middle seasons, there's really no goal, but season 7, I think there's a clear goal. It's, we're tired of Negan, and we're going to kill this son of a bitch. I think that's what the goal for season 7 is, and that's why I think you should give season 7 a shot.
I will consider it.
I'm just saying.
However, there is an addendum to my James Cameron Spider-Man.
We're circling back to sex on the Brooklyn Bridge. Here we go.
The addendum is, in 2012, before Amazing Spider-Man became Amazing Spider-Man, they offered a Spider-Man project to one David Bartholomew Fincher.
Get the fuck out of here!
The director of 7, Fight Club, Zodiac.
Okay.
And Alien 3.
Okay, Teebs, I'm handing you a shovel. Let's dig into this. What the hell does a David Fincher Spider-Man movie look like?
I'm not sure. I have not been able to find too much of, like, prep work or previs on this, but I just think it would have been a much, much younger Peter Parker.
Oh, I thought you. I was already getting ready for Helena Bonham Carter as Mary Jane.
Actually,
I was already getting ready for that.
I feel like Amazing might have taken the right tenor. Although it would, the only thing that I could find would have been a younger. Well, actually, there would have been no backstory, right? Or there would have been no he gets bitten by the spider and that happened. No, all of that
No
would have
origin.
happened.
Yeah, that's
No
fine.
origin. That would have happened in
That's
like
fine.
10 minutes during the credits. He would have been an adult and he would have met Gwen Stacy, and it would have been the whole Gwen Stacy thing. So it would have been real dark. And
I like that. I like this idea, honestly. I'm feeling this. Next episode, we're going to have to cast the David Fincher Spider-Man movie. We're going to have to do that. So I have one special for you, Teebs, and you're not really prepared for this, but that's okay because you're such a head of this show. It's glorious, and I know you'll have the answer. One of your favorite shows of all time in perpetuity is The X-Files, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay, Teebs is the resident X-Files guy on this podcast, so I'm going to let him cook a little bit because I saw one and I was just like, this is perfect for Teebs. He can cook for 5-10 minutes. He's already getting ready. He's getting his notes out. He's got the black composition book. Jerome is handing it to him. How you doing, Jerome? Teebs.
Mm-hmm.
What if the X-Files final episode was in fact season 7, episode 11, entitled Closure?
So the thing about season 7 is all the alien stuff, like what's the deal with the aliens, or what are they doing, what's happening, where are they, what's the government, who are all the conspirators, what's happening. Most of that stuff is already handled by season 7. Most of that stuff is already figured out, like we know what that is.
Right.
The episode you're referencing just tells the story of what's the deal with Mulder's sister. So if it ends there, yeah, it would be nice. But I don't think ultimately the fact that the show went on really hurt it that much. I mean, yeah, people like to say season 7 is bad. I personally like season 7. People really don't like season 8 and 9 because there's hardly any Duchovny in it. And season 9 is not great. Season 8 is a whole lot better than you think, and you should go back and rewatch it if you're an X-Files guy. Season 9, season 10 and 11, not great, but they have their moments. Like, I don't think there's anything that, like, well, the ending of season, I could do without season 11. If it ended after season 10, I think we'd be okay.
Is the X-Files legacy, is it hurt at all by the fact that it went 4 extra seasons? Like you were saying, 1.5 were just okay.
It might have more critical acclaim, but I don't think that fandom would regard it any differently.
And then I think you still get the renaissance of the resurgence in the later years, like in the late ends, I think it was, the mid-2010s?
I think you do, because people liked the show, and people were into the show, and they wanted more, and, Fox was happy to oblige.
Then I guess the other question becomes, what becomes of Dave Duchovny if he doesn't have the X-Files past season 7, which was what?
Well, season 7, he was already out. His contract was up. He signed he only signed on to do like 5 episodes in season 8. And by season 9, he's all the way out.
Season 7 is after Fight the Future, if I'm remembering correctly.
Season 7 is 2 seasons after Fight the Future.
Okay. So he's already done the movie. He's back in it for 2 more episodes, and then he's just like, all right, I think I might be done with this part of my career. Like, I'll come back maybe in 2008. I Want to Believe. And then,
even that movie was like, they made that movie, they made another series because people just wanted more of the show. I don't think what actually happened in the show, or the plot of the show was going to destroy the relationship that people had built up with these characters over the years. Like,
Okay.
and clearly it didn't, because they kept clamoring for it even like 10, 15 years after the fact.
Interesting. Like I said, you're the resident X-Files head, so I go to you for all of my X-Files knowledge. People can come to our section of the universe for all of the multiversal what if nonsense that encompasses pop culture. There's tons. And like I said, this may just become a seasonal event for us where we just like get three together and just like, hey, what if this happened? What if we got Tom Cruise's Iron Man? What if we got that James Cameron Sex on the Bridge Spider-Man movie? Like,
Oh my gosh.
But we are going to get out of here. Listen, like, follow, subscribe to the podcast. You can do so wherever you follow podcasts. We're on Twitter with X. We're on Facebook. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Instagram. We're on all the good stuff. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We will be back next week. Sorry, wrong, John. It happened. We're going to get out of here. Until next week, Teebs and KidPhoenix, we're out of here.
I feel for my brother. Feel for my brother. And as time passes by, I see it unsatisfied.